focus on class, coming in, getting prepared, and then we'll start practicing tomorrow morning for Hawaii. Just looking at the game they played against San Diego State, obviously they had to travel. This is a long travel game. And, for us, we got to be prepared for that. Nobody on this team, some GAs, a few coaches have played in Hawaii, but we have no other guys, at least that were there in the team meeting. And I might be missing somebody you guys would probably know that have played over there on the island. And, so we've got to obviously prepare ourselves for that different environment. We play at altitude. We played in cold weather. Obviously, this is going to be different, warmer than what it is right now. And so we're preparing we will prepare for that throughout the week. And we played this team twice last year. They've got returning starters from last year's team. They're a good football team. Obviously, new staff. Their coach did a very good job, went to Washington State. And I still think they've got some really good players. The quarterback we got a chance to see last year, number 12. I think he's a very good player. He makes plays. He's been very successful as a starter. Their running back number 4, Myles Reed, wore 26 last year. This guy I think he's a weapon, and he makes guys miss. So we have to do a great job tackling. We're going to have to continue to emphasize that. And then other guys on the offensive line, like I said, 4 or 5 guys back up front, and other players, wide receiver Jared Smart, very good player. Their other running back, Calvin Turner, again. This guy, kind of a triple option QB, kind of a wildcat guy, can come in and play some quarterback. So a little bit trying to figure him out, what he's going to be doing back there. And then defensively, new scheme. I think Coach Graham does a good job as a defensive coach. And with the new staff, kind of what they're doing right now, I mean, they're challenging on the defensive side. But the main focus for us is how we prepare, what our focus is, and how do we take from what we learned from the game that we played in against Colorado State and apply that into this week and into our preparation. I thought we had a good week of prep on a short week, but certainly in that game, there were still a few things that stood out that we have to improve on, and just some of the mental errors that we made in the game that you guys didn't see. The score, obviously, in the special teams play, I think that covered some of those things up a little bit, but we know what those mental errors were and what we have to correct and how we have to prepare. And then just the focus of going back on the road and being able to travel, do it the right way, get there, prepare the night before, get up in the morning, be ready to play. And that's really the focus right now with what we've been talking about. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Start with BJ Rains and Jay Tust, and we'll get into Mike Prater.
Hey, Bryan, we were talking after the game about, the 14 COVID tests, and I just was curious. You guys had 5 defensive interior guys that dressed, I guess 6 if you count Ben Dooley, and then you had, I think, 10 offensive linemen, if I counted right, and that was before John Ojukwu got hurt, and that put you at 9, and you were pretty close to those Mountain West thresholds there, only 1 or 2 spots, I guess, at both of those spots. And I hate to make this the first question, I guess, but, I mean, are you – this game at all in jeopardy? I mean, have you got any test results back that make you feel good about this? Or is there any doubt that, if something else happens, you guys could be in trouble here?
Yeah, it's not in jeopardy right now. But I think every game, and I don't know what their results are. They traveled. I believe they tested yesterday as well. So I don't know what their results are. I haven't heard that from our trainers. I know that information, not so much who the players are, but just the results of positives. Information is shared. So today when we have our staff meeting, I'll find out where they stand. I think right now we're good, but we still have a couple more tests throughout the week. And you're right. Last week, the challenge, we got to a point when you're using an offensive lineman to play defensive line, you're at that point. And I felt like really up until the day before the game, hey, we had practiced, we had put these guys in a position to be successful. Coaches felt that way. The players showed it. They felt that way. They wanted to play. The reality of it is, once you start that game, you're not stopping it. And, you just got to make sure that you're able to go out there and be competitive and play and have the numbers that you can actually play with. The difficult part, it's not so much the game. The difficult part I think everybody's facing is the practice. You're moving a guy from O-line to D-line back to O-line. You're moving guys around, and just imagine, you're on half the field, right? Defense is on one end, offense is on the other. And you have several players right now that are going down to be scout team players on one end and then starters on another in a certain package, for example. And then you have your guys that are starting, in a rack normally of 6 reps, they're taking 10. That's just where you got to be smart. I mean, we're managing things that we normally don't have to manage. Practice the game, you always, and then even at home, you got a 74-man roster at home, right? All of our guys on the sideline, I mean, they're in the stands waving the towels, which they should be doing, but you could also have them on the sideline if you needed depth, all right, if you needed to put somebody in there even to finish a game. And so, a lot of this is just, it's challenging when it comes to numbers, but I think every game, every single week, is somewhat in jeopardy of just based off testing. 1 or 2 guys can wipe out 7 to 10, right? And that's not just our team, that's every team. And we've seen that. We Pac-12, they, right as they get started, some teams are already not able to play. I think the SEC, every week there's postponements, right? There's cancellations or postponements. So for me to say right now it's in jeopardy, I mean, I think every game, every week, you don't know what's going to happen. And, if we get to that point, then we have to make those decisions. And those are tough decisions. We were feeling it last week on a short week, and obviously credit to our players, that did not affect them. That didn't affect them. And I knew it did, but they didn't let it. Let me say that. It did affect them, but they didn't let it affect him come game time. And a guy like Scott Matlock that's taken every rep that's out there. We went in condition yesterday. He's still the first guy. He's 1 or 2 every time we run our gassers back and forth. So, to me, this is not just about football. This is a development opportunity for the type of discipline you have, the toughness that you have to get through times like this. Not just in football, but there's a lot of challenges. You had to put all this work, and then you show up and you play, and then you come back and you work again, and you just took all these reps. You just had all these plays in the game, but yet you're still ready to go put your hand on the line and be the first one back and forth. I mean, to me, like that type of stuff, that's what this whole thing is about. Like, that's the development piece. Football's going to end. These guys are not going to tackle any longer at some point in their lives. They're not going to do all those things. But like that toughness that they're developing through some of these really challenging times, that will never go away. I mean, to me, that's part of what I think in this development piece is our responsibility to point out. There's a lot of challenges. Everybody, every day, you wake up, you test yesterday, you wake up the next day, and you ask guys to be focused, but they're all waiting for the results. That's difficult, and you got to do that 3 times a week. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge for every single one of us. But so far so good with our guys accepting those challenges and being ready to go each and every day.
I know you say not to put too much stock into the depth chart we get each week, but I did notice that Octavius Evans had been removed completely, and you also had Scaly Gahan moved down to second string. Are either of those you can comment on?
Well, I hope we get Scale back.
Okay.
Those other guys played, so you got to work your way back in. That's part of it. So we'll see where Scale's at. And then right now, Octavius, he's not on the depth chart. No disciplinary issues, anything like that. He's not practicing with us right now.
Jay Tust, followed by Mike Prater.
Yeah. How's it going, Bryan?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Kind of sticking with the COVID theme. When you lose a player to COVID, what is that communication process like immediately in terms of, making sure that he's okay and out of the building? And do you still communicate with them while they might not necessarily be with the team? And then what is the integration process like after they are deemed, okay to return?
Yeah. So once we know like a guy is positive, the trainers or the coaches, they're going to communicate, they're going to connect with them and let them know to not be here. Right. If they were here, then you got to remove them and make sure that everything is okay. So it's kind of been both those situations. It's all about timing. That's what becomes difficult. If we got the test, perfectly at the same time the day after, that would be much easier to manage, but that doesn't always happen. Once they're told, they go home, they start their isolation, they do what they're supposed to do. Coaches, trainers reach out. I always want to know if they have symptoms. Like I want to know if they're okay. Like, do they have symptoms? Are they healthy right now? Are they the kind of the asymptomatic, or are they feeling something? Because I think those things are important. At least in our world, it's, how is he feeling? Did he kind of know this was happening, or did he feel something? And, a lot of our guys haven't had symptoms. Some guys have. From that point, it's really on the coach to stay connected with them, right? So the coaches, some of their culture group is going to stay connected with them. Trainers are checking on them. Strength coaches are checking on them. And then, now you're still going on with the guys that are here. You got to think once somebody is removed, the focus goes back into who's replacing him, because that guy's probably going to need a lot of attention to make sure that he's good. And then the focus is not only are you focused on the next guy, but who's the next guy behind him. You start getting three guys at a position and one guy goes out. That's kind of what we were just talking about. What BJ was mentioning too, how difficult that becomes. Does that become a challenge where you're not able to field a team because you have nobody at that position? And then once they come back, it depends if they're quarantined or if they're coming off a positive test, right? Quarantine, they get back in, and once they've spent that time, they're able to come back as long as there's been no symptoms and they feel good. And then the guys that come back that have had COVID or tested positive, they got to go through a process with our doctors. And I don't know everything to that. I know it takes several days to do on what they have to do. So I feel like it's pretty thorough as far as all that goes. I think it's been consistent, and as far as the timing and what guys have had to do, and the guys that have come back, so far so good. But that's part of it too. I mean, we don't assume anything either. Just because it's worked one time, I mean, every single time you got to just stay on top of it, because everybody's different, and we want to make sure we're doing it the right way and the best we can. So there's a lot of conversations about it. Unfortunately, that's a lot of time that we spend just on numbers and guys and time and dates and who's coming back when, and contact tracing, those type of things. And, it is a lot of work just to make sure that our day-to-day can go somewhat smooth so we can practice. And then, by the time you get to the game the night before, it's like, all right, we made it, we're here, barring anything crazy the next day. I mean, this is the team and this is what we have to go do.
Looking at Hank's performance, obviously he missed a couple of games. I mean, as specific as you want to be, but, how available was he leading up to the Colorado State game? Did you feel like he had to shake off any rust at all? And overall, the offense looked a little more in rhythm or on time than maybe it did for a lot of the BYU game, where there was a lot of improvisation that was going on.
Yeah, it was a lot different. Yeah, I mean, that was, the operation, Hank being in it, he operated the offense like we should. It wasn't perfect. But no, anytime, you got to treat everything when a guy is out. I mean, it's always like an injury, right? You got to work guys back in. And it just takes some time. It takes time to get back into rhythm, whether you're a quarterback, receiver, DB, D-line, whatever. It all takes a little bit of time. So, the nice thing is you get out there, you practice, you try to get a ton of reps while you're getting back in there. And you just know, like, hey, as we work through the plan, what is this particular player going to be successful at? And you try to plan it that way and just understand kind of the ups and downs that we're dealing with injuries or COVID and when guys are out and different things like that. So I thought Hank did well. Hank operates. He's got a good feel. I think he's got really good awareness when he's out there on the field. And our execution will be better. Our execution can be better. That's always what we're focused on weekly. But as far as just the operation, getting up, getting set, running the play, having the right play, all those things like that, yeah, we were able to do that better. And I think as the season goes on, not just Hank, but Jack and Cade and Andy and all those guys, they're getting better at it. They're getting better at it because sometimes it's not just the quarterback position. Sometimes that particular player that was on that route that week may not be there, right? And now we got to make a decision. Do we feel like that's still a good play based off the personnel that we have? It's not just we're just going to run it regardless. And so that changes it up a little bit. And you got to spend some time now with that quarterback, that receiver, working that concept to hopefully have the timing the way you want it. So it's what I say about our guys through all this, a lot of these guys, they haven't flinched. Every single week, they've had a bunch of different challenges and they still just they show up and they work hard and they're trying. They're trying to process it all sometimes. And I'm proud of our guys for that, just watching them operate. And I think like I said before, I think we're building skills right now that we normally don't have to build, but under the circumstances, these are the skills that when they leave here are going to be the most beneficial, in my opinion. Some of this toughness and some of this mentality that they're creating right now. And we got to go do it again. I don't know what tomorrow is going to look like when we go practice. I think we'll have X amount of guys. And then as the week goes on, how's that all going to look when we go play against Hawaii? That's really up to us and how we go and operate our week.
Mike Prater, followed by Paul J. Schneider.
Hey, Bryan, you talked about making mental errors. You talked about cleaning up and correcting some other errors. You're halfway through the regular season, and defensively, the statistics are a little hit and miss, hot and cold. What's your half-season report card on the defense in terms of the yards, the points, the overall production?
Yeah, well, to me, from a defensive standpoint, like, how are we tackling? I thought this last game we tackled much better. All right. And Riley Wimpy he was the example of that. We had a turnover. All right. Minus the special teams ones and all that, those were defensive players that were making those plays. But we had a turnover. We had an interception, which was a point of emphasis. Ball's in the air, right? And we have a chance to make a play. Let's make it. And JL made that play. I think a little bit of some of the movement that we've had to make in some areas, because here's an example. I mean, we started off and we've got one safety playing a nickel position and backing up a corner, and then he's back to playing boundary safety, and then this guy comes back and he's back to playing free safety. This is all in a week, and so a little bit it's a little bit hard to gauge all that when you're not just in that same alignment every single week and doing the same things and working on the same things. So now, that being said, that's the challenge that we have to face, right? That's what we have to do every week as coaches. And I don't think it's just the players. I think it's everybody. I think it's coaches. It's all of us. It's all of us working through that and doing everything we can to keep it. And we still want to be sophisticated out there, but simple for our guys, right? This is what we're doing so we can play fast. And to me, that's what we've got to be able to do as we prepare each week. So if we're tackling, if we're hustling to the ball, if we're tackling, the thing that we can improve most definitely on is the turnovers. We got to create some turnovers. We've got to be able to go attack the ball and get it while it's in the air. We got to be able to out jump. All right. Out snatch somebody when the ball's, a 50-50 ball. Let's go win that on the defensive side. And then when we go and tackle, if we get multiple players there's got to be a chance when that ball does come out that we get on it and we can recover it. So definitely want to see more turnovers on that side of the ball, eliminate them on O and try to create some on defense. And probably, again, because of special teams last game, that didn't really show up as much because we had so many on special teams. But that's still a point of emphasis moving forward.
Andrew Van Buren, at one point in his development, it seemed like he was destined to become a number one running back. I don't know where you feel about that, but his production and his, he's got this opportunity, but it doesn't seem like the production is there. And I know there's other circumstances going on, but just your thoughts on Andrew Van Buren. And last week you said that George Holani was, healing and getting closer, right? Something along those lines. I know you're not going to say what he wants to do this week, but are you feeling more comfortable that you're going to get more depth back at running back soon?
Not necessarily. I hope so. I mean, this, for me to say that on a Monday, and we have a whole week, we're hopeful that we get more depth back and that we'll be better in that area. As far as Andrew, I have always thought Andrew, and I still do. I think he's a very good tailback. I think he can be an excellent player at that position. And you mentioned it. It's not just Andrew. There's a lot of other factors. If you don't have a tight end or certain alignment or, guys change, and that changes what guys are able to do running the ball. And so I think Andrew's been working his tail off. With George being out, Andrew's taken the majority of the reps. And that, again, just going back to kind of that workhorse mentality, like that all sounds good, but, every play and in practice and every rep almost, and at some point, and that's part of our plan, as coaches, we've got to manage that. Players have to do a great job of taking care of their bodies. But I also think part of that too is the teams we played, they've been good at stopping the run. And so when you've got more depth and you've got kind of a 1-2 punch, which we've had before, I think that helps us. But Andrew, I fully expect him to have a great week of practice. I think he's going to run hard in this game. And he is a good player, and he's a really good pass protector. He's smart. He's tough. He's been asked to do a lot, and not at any point has he not went out there with the right mindset to do what he has to do. And I appreciate that. To me, and he's one of those guys I'm talking about. He's a tough guy. He's really worked himself into being, I think, a much better player than he was before, and he's getting better as he goes. And we need to help him. Part of our run game is making sure that we help him. We block the guys downfield we're supposed to block. We don't miss a safety at wide receiver. We have good snaps. We can hand the ball off on time. I mean, there's a lot of other factors that come into play when you're talking about the tailback position. But he's going to have a great week. I think I know he'll have himself prepared, and then it's a matter of how do we run the ball against this front that we're about to see.
Paul J. Snyder, take one from you, and then shoot me a text if anybody's got an additional question if we still have time.
A couple of interesting stats building on what Mike said. San Diego State ran for 374 yards against Hawaii. So if ever there was a game where you would like to have a stable of tailbacks to run the ball, this would be it. And also they had 15 tackles for loss, which is an incredible number against San Diego State. How did they do that?
Well, I think San Diego State's always been a team that's run the ball well. That hasn't changed. They're physical. They showed that. And Hawaii's watching their defense and kind of studying this different scheme that Coach Graham has. You know, it's tough from the standpoint. You just got a lot of guys moving all over the place. So can you keep them covered? Can the backs break some tackles, which I thought San Diego State did? And then talking about the tackles for loss as well. I mean, that's part of their scheme. They're going to get in the backfield and cause problems. And so you got to do a great job in protection. You got to do a great job as far as a quarterback of making the right decisions. San Diego State did run the ball effectively. They had, I think there was a couple of turnovers in that game too, Hawaii had. So, you know, their scheme makes it difficult. I think their players are getting better in it. And I don't know everything that went into that game. I don't know what the whole setup for San Diego State was from Hawaii. I mean, they're doing a lot of the same things that they did in the previous games, but, you know, was there something that happened along the way during the week, or San Diego State just really ran the ball effectively, which they showed, and they kind of got into a groove. So either way, yes, we want to be able to run it. We'd like to be able to produce a run game that was effective like that, and at the same time avoid the tackles for loss and all those things like you mentioned.
Take one from Bob Beeler.
Coach, you mentioned Hawaii changing coaches this year. What are the biggest differences between Hawaii last year and this year?
Well, I spent a little bit of time watching their offense. Their offense is different. You know, I think what Rolovich did, kind of utilizing the run and shoot, a little bit of vintage Hawaii, that's a little bit different. Defensively, their scheme, Todd Graham and just what they're doing on the defensive side is different. I haven't really got into their special teams at this point. So, I mean, it's new staff, new ways of doing things, new schemes. But they're still physical. They fly around, which Hawaii always does. I mean, that's what I've seen every year we played them. They're big up front. Their tailbacks get explosive runs, so you got to be able to tackle them. They're going to get those guys out, and they'll get them in space. They create that on the offensive side. And, you know, I think they play well at home, right? I think that's always an area where when you have to travel there, you better be ready. You better know what you're getting into. So overall, I mean, there's a lot of similarities in there just as far as their team and the players, but the schemes and what they're doing on each side of the ball is different, which you'd expect with the coaching change. And who knows, this week they may change something. They may have a new wrinkle. They're going to have some things that they probably haven't showed at this point or that they want to change. And, you know, we got to go back and be focused on what we do. You know, we're going to be different too. We'll be a different team than we were the week before. And like we mentioned, earlier in this interview, there's just a lot of changes. So by the end of the week, how we start now, it could be different, and things are going to have to adjust along the way. And no different than last week, and our guys did that. So we're going to find ways to be amazing problem solvers again this week. And how do we get prepared for Hawaii?
BJ, quick one, final question.
Hey, Coach, you guys are waiting until Friday to fly out. I think in the past when you go to Hawaii, it's been on Thursday. Just curious if that's to get more test results or COVID related or quarantine related, and what kind of challenge is that 3-hour time difference getting there, turn around, play the next day?
I don't think it's going to be that challenging with the 3 hours, but the reason why we did it, there's really nothing to do, right? You get there, we're just going to be in the hotel. And so a lot of times, we get there and we have a practice, we get acclimated a little bit, and we just kind of let our bodies recover from the travel. And then we're able to go do something, maybe on a Thursday night, maybe a Friday morning, right? While we're there in Hawaii, maybe do something fun as a team and just get together, even if it's, walking along the beach or just letting guys just go for a couple hours while we're there. But that experience is going to be different now. I mean, we're getting on the plane after we practice. We're going to fly there. We're going to get off. We're going to go eat. We're going to have meetings. We're going to go to bed. We'll wake up the next day. We'll eat. We'll have meetings, we'll go to our room, and then we'll have pregame meal and leave and go play the game. So just based off what's happening in Hawaii as well, I think it's best for us. We're going to be respectful of what they're asking us to do. Just basically show up, play the game, and leave. And that's really our focus. So I think for our guys, it'll be okay because we'll get a lot done here. And I think the last 3 weeks, it just felt so crammed. It'll be nice to have a real Thursday to come in on a Friday a little bit earlier and then leave. And yeah, the travel, 6 hours on a plane, we're going to get off and we're going to stretch out. We'll make sure we're ready to go. And the next day it's have yourself ready to play and let's go get after it.
All right, guys. Thanks, Hars. Appreciate the time, guys.
Okay. Thank you guys. Have a great day.